And this one is a really interesting solo survival game because it's based on an actual true story of a Japanese soldier in the Philippines who didn't know or believe the war had ended, and he had continued to fight and survive in the jungle all the way into the 1970s. In this game, you're going to be playing as that particular character, and you're going to be managing your health and your paranoia over 6 rounds. And those are going to be represented on a single track, but with tokens going in the opposite direction. And if those ever meet or overlap in any way, you're going to be going through a difficult test that, if you fail, will result in your death and cost you the game. The game takes place on this map here with randomly assigned tokens to each of the locations, which are going to be determining which actions are available in those locations for that particular game. The different actions are going to allow you to visit that location to repair that particular item of equipment, because you will be using these items to complete different missions, which normally will break that item or perhaps one of your other items. There is also an action you can take anywhere out on the map, and that is to gather food. You do also have a free movement action, but the problem with taking any of these actions is that every time you move into a space, you're going to be adding one of these alert tokens, and anytime you take any action within that space, you're also going to be adding additional alert tokens for each of those actions. This isn't really a good thing because anytime that you perform an action other than the movement action, you're going to have to perform a skill test, and the difficulty of that skill test is determined by how many alert tokens are in that space. The way this works is that you're going to be drawing a token from a bag, and you know exactly which tokens are in that bag. There's not a whole whack of different tokens, but you're going to need to draw a token that's higher than the amount of alert tokens in that space. But gathering food and repairing your items is really all you're doing to try and survive. It's not really going to be granting you any victory points at the end of the game. The way that you do gain victory points is at the start of each round, you're going to be drawing a mission card, and this is going to be providing you with some sort of benefit and victory points if you are able to complete it. But it usually does also have some sort of punishment if you do fail your attempt. These are always optional, so you don't have to complete them, but like I said, it is the main way that you're going to be scoring victory points. And if you're wondering how he's getting missions when the war is over, well, that's the reason they're optional, because these are self-imposed missions that he just happens to think he needs to do. But the fun doesn't stop there, because after every action other than a movement, not only do you put one of those alert tokens in that space, but you're also going to be drawing an event card, and these can give instant or ongoing positive, but mostly negative effects. They could give you some different options or trade-offs in order to mitigate the amount of damage that they do. Luckily, you do have 2 comrades that can help you with different missions and events, but you will have to feed yourself and them at the start of each round, assuming that they are still alive. I already mentioned that there's an action that you can use in any space in order to gather food, and the way that this works is exactly the same as performing any other action. You just have to draw a token from the bag, and it needs to be higher than the amount of alert tokens in your space. But what's cool about this is that the amount of food you get is on the backside of that token, which means as you're pulling food out of that bag, you're actually limiting the values that still remain in it, which is going to allow you to think ahead and determine if you want to take any more actions. For example, if you already happen to take all the lower tokens out as you're gathering food, you might want to take some more difficult actions knowing that there's still higher value tokens in that bag. But at the end of each round, you will get to remove 1 alert token for free out of each location, and you can also pay a rice for each location to then remove a second alert token. The game continues like this over a series of rounds representing years and years passing by, and if you're able to survive that long, that's going to be long enough for Onoda to finally accept that the war has come to an end. But at that point, you're going to be adding up your victory points from your completed missions, which is going to determine how well you did in the game, which is a matter of perspective, because although this man did think he was still in a war and that he was serving his country, he did also do a lot of terrible things because of that. It's an interesting story, but sadly Onoda did kill about 30 innocent people over this time, so he is definitely not a hero.